This lesson will be the second part of the Unit 1 PA tutorial. So let's start with question number 2. Again, I do not have it written on this video, but I'll remind you of the statements and the question from the test. Again, in number 2, we had two teachers that had classrooms that were raising money. They each had a goal, actually the same goal of $600. And it stated that Mr. Wu's class specifically had already earned 1/5 of their $600 goal. And what you were asked to do was to write this fraction, decimal, and percent, the equivalent form. So obviously in Mr. Wu's you were given the fraction of 1/5. So you were to find the equivalent decimal of 1/5. Some of you may have to have memorized that one, but if not, we divide the numerator by the denominator. So 1 divided by 5. 5 is not going to 1, so we put a 0. We'll add a decimal, bring it into our answer, and 5 goes into 10 2 times. So you can see there that the decimal is 0.2. We would pronounce that as 2/10. If you think about that fraction 2/10, it's actually equivalent to the original fraction 1/5. Obviously, I think you understand that. That's multiplying the numerator and the denominator by 2. 1 times 2 is 2, and 5 times 2 is 10. They all work together. 1/5 is equivalent to 2/10. Now, as a percent, we understand that percent is based on 100, so we multiply this 0.2 times 100 by moving the decimal 2 places to the right, so we would have to add a 0, and that ends up becoming 20%. So Mr. Wu's class had actually earned 20% of their goal. Let's look at Mr. Green's class. It told us very specifically that Mr. Green's class had already earned 25% of the $600 goal. All right. So again, you were asked to create a fraction, decimal, and percent equivalent. You were given the percent for Mr. Green's class, so we're looking for the equivalent decimal and fraction of 25%. Well, let's go to the fraction. We understand that percent means out of 100. So our fraction would be 25 out of 100, but we would want to simplify that. 25 and 100 have a common factor of 25, so if you were to divide both the numerator and the denominator by 25, you will end up with the fraction 1/4. So Mr. Green's class had already earned 1/4 or 25% of their goal, and as a decimal, 25% is the same as 25 hundredths. Here you see the original 25 hundredths, and that is a decimal of 0.25, pronounced 25 hundredths. Just like the fraction. I know it sounds repetitive, but that's what this lesson is about. They are all equivalent, and they all say the same thing. We could, again, just divide the fraction by dividing the numerator by the denominator. 4 is not going to 1. We add a decimal and a 0. 4 goes into 10 2 times. 4 times 2 is 8. When we subtract, we get a remainder of 2. We'll add a 0 on the end here, bring it down. Now 4 goes into 20 5 times, and that is where we get our 0.25. Okay, that's Mr. Green's class. The second part said, which class earned the most? Well, we could simply look back at the percentages. You can see, again, Mr. Green's class was 25%, and we determined that Mr. Wu's class was was just 20%, so the 25% of Mr. Green's class would be the most. So the answer there would have been Mr. Green. All right, and let's look at part B. Same thing as in number 1. This question, number 2, wants you to determine how much more the class needs to earn. Well, we remember that Mr. Wu's class had earned 1/5 of their goal. Remember, the goal was actually 600. $600. Well, if we are breaking this down into fifths and it all equals 600, then each section would be worth $120. And if they've already have earned 1/5, they've earned that much. What remains is this much. If you just wanted to do it as 120 times 4, that would be fine. And you would see that your answer would be 480. Another way of doing that, if Mr. Wu's class, we determined that this was 20%. So the remaining then would have been 80%. So we could have found 80% of 600. So we turn 80% into the decimal 0.8, multiply it times 600, and when you do that, you're going to get the $480. All right, now finally, let's look at Mr. Green's class. Again, we determined that Mr. Green's class had earned 25%, or we were actually told 25%, which is 1/4. So if the entire goal was, again, $600, and we're breaking it down into quarters because we were told his class had earned 25%, which is one of these sections, 25%. Well, each one would be worth $150. If the class had already, again, earned that 25%, then what remained were the 3/4 or the 75%. So 150 times 3 is $450. Again, we determined that what remained was 75%, and we would multiply that 75% of $600. That becomes a multiplication problem times 600, and you would still get the 450. Okay, that is a quick tutorial over the Unit 1 PA. Hopefully you are learning from this tutorial for the retake.